Hi, good morning. It's dark because it's dark outside. The lights are all on in my house, but it's dark because it's dark outside. So, good morning, fifth grade. What we're going to do is I'm just going to give you like a synopsis of the first half, of the chapter 11. You're probably going to have to reread it. I'm really sorry. I don't know how this happened. But we're going to try really hard to rectify the situation, which means fix. Yeah. All right. So here I have my lovely notes, and I'm just going to read through the notes. And I would strongly suggest that you read through everything that is not until you get up to respiration sounds, because that's where I'm going. You're going to be taking quizzes, and the quizzes should help you on the test, is my hope. And of course, I'm going to give you the study guide. So there's not going to be like a lot of written work like worksheets. There's going to be the quizzes, but you're basically going to be working on relearning the material from chapter 11 and taking the test. Okay. All right. So here we go. Breathe. Okay, so to breathe is the exchange of gases within your body from the inside air to the outside air and vice versa. So there's two kinds of breathing. There's voluntary breathing where I can control it and think about it, go, or there's the involuntary breathing, which is what you do most percentage of the day, which is what occurs when you're sleeping. Okay, when you're not sitting there thinking about breathing. Involuntary breathing occurs, like I said, whenever you're not thinking about it. It's mostly what happens. Involuntary means you're not thinking about it. So you don't have to go to sleep and say, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Okay, you don't have to do that because God created you to just involuntarily breathe. There's certain things that our body does that are involuntary. Excuse me. Thank you. That keep us alive. Breathing is one of them. Our heart beating is the other. You don't sit there and think beat, 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 right? Because it's involuntary. Okay, it means you're not thinking about it. All right. So, there are actually no muscles or anything in the lungs. So how we breathe is based on other muscles. So one of the muscles is our diaphragm. The diaphragm tightens and moves down, which allows the chest muscles, which are the other muscles, to lift the ribs up and out so that they can be filled with air, and they can be emptied. Okay? So inside your lungs, you have empty space, and that is for the air to come in. And then as you breathe out, everything contracts and pushes the air out. Does that make sense? All right, path of air. So most of the time you breathe through your nose, okay? And most of the time you don't even think about it. But when you get a cold, or stuffy, then you breathe through your mouth. But it's really best to breathe through your nose due to the fact that inside your nose are hairs called cilia. Sorry, I moved and it's all shaky. Cilia. And the cilia filter out dust particles, they filter out bacteria, they filter out harmful things in the air to keep you healthy. So God created this whole filtration process, which we're going to learn about, in order to keep out dust and debris and bacteria from getting inside of you and making you sick. Okay? So in addition to the hair that you have in your nostrils, yeah, one there, is also a mucus substance that captures debris as well. And that is where you get like the booger things from because it dries out. Okay. If your nose gets too irritated because of all the debris and particles in there, you do what I just did, which is sneeze. Okay. The force of that pressure, the air coming through, pushes those particles out of your nose. Okay? Other cool thing about breathing through your nose is that the air is actually warmed and moisturized by the mucus, yeah. Um, beef and filtered, yes. So it's also warmed and moisturized before it enters your lungs. Okay, it's pretty cool. All right, your once it goes into your nose, there's the nasal cavity. Remember we talked about that? That's like an open space behind your nose. Yeah, like in here, like inside if you could go in. Yeah, where the air goes. Okay. Then that goes down your throat because where are your lungs? Your lungs are here, so it's got to go down. So it goes down your throat from your nose, and that super cool scientific name is your pharynx. 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 Okay. So from your pharynx, um, trachea. Okay, so trachea through the throat to the trachea. Okay, so the pharynx, then the trachea, then it goes into the bronchi or bronchi. I've always been taught to say it bronchi, but it's not quite correct. It's bronchi. Okay, so bronchi. So at the end of your trachea, yeah, is where there's like a branch. Okay, it branches out one to the left, one to the right because you have two lungs, one on your left, one on your right. And what it does is those little two branches that come out, those are called your bronchi. All right, and then it goes into your lungs. And there's a bronchial tubes, and there's things that we'll talk about when we get there, okay? It's really amazing the intricacy that God created within our body just to breathe so that our body can extract the oxygen that it needs from the air and release the carbon dioxide that all of our cells produce as waste products, okay? It is so amazing. Okay, so the whole path goes like this. Well, okay, it's not the whole path, it's the simplistic path. It's your nose, your pharynx, your trachea, your bronchi, and then your lungs. Okay? So that is how it goes. And look, we're on page 2 of our, oops, sorry. Okay, see page 2, yay! All right. So, your, the tube that goes down into your down your throat, yeah, there's two tubes, yeah, we call it the windpipe or the trachea, and the food pipe or the esophagus. So everything goes in through your mouth or your, well, okay, food and air going through your mouth. But and as you talk, food air goes back and forth. So, how does the food or air go into the right place? So, the way that happens is you have this, I love this word, it's such a fun word. A little flap that closes one pipe or the other called an ep. Oh, no, I forgot. Hang on. Epiglottis. I had it a minute ago. It's called your epiglottis. And so this is why your parents tell you not to talk when you're eating. It's yucky to look at your food in your mouth all crunched up. But also, if you're talking and eating, your epiglottis is trying to figure out which side to go. And sometimes it chooses the wrong thing. And that's when you say, oh, it went down the wrong pipe. Yeah. Because it kind of did. So the one leads to your lungs and the one leads to your stomach. So getting them mixed up can be a problem. Hang on. Oh, sorry. And so the epiglottis flaps closed over the trachea when you're eating so that it goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and it flaps open, yes, when you are talking or breathing, so that the air can go into your lungs. So if you're talking while you're eating, you have a great chance of choking. Okay? Same thing as if you're walking around and eating, because you breathe heavier when you do any kind of exercise sort of thing. All right? Okay. So, I just think it's a fun word, epiglottis. All right. Now let's talk about the larynx. The larynx is the scientific word for your voice box, okay? Your voice box has 9 pieces of cartilage and small muscles, 2 bands of elastic tissue, which are called your vocal cords, okay? The vocal cords form a V, and there's a small gap that when it's relaxed, so like if I'm not talking like this, there's a small gap that allows air to go through, back and forth, back and forth. When you talk, that tightens, okay, your vocal cords tighten, and the air passes over to the vibrating, okay, which causes the sound, which we talked about when we talked about sound. And it narrows the V shape so that the breathing is a little restricted. Okay? That's why, like, when you see people gasping for breath and they're trying to talk, you say, don't talk, don't talk. Because it's actually narrowing the passage. Let me hold this in a different place. There we go. See, it's just it's bending because it's a rubbery thing that's meant to bend. And then it's moving. All right. So speech occurs when you're exhaling. Yeah. So if you sing, they tell you all the time to breathe with your diaphragm, because it allows the lungs to fill up better. Okay. It gives you more holding power. How long can you hold a note? So when you're taught to sing, if you ever take singing lessons or are in a choir that teaches you muscle control, they will talk to you about breathing out slowly so that you can hold a note, and taking a very deep breath right before you start to hold a note so that you can hold the note for many, many counts. All right? So the nose, the throat, and the larynx are classified as your upper respiratory system. So congratulations. We have just talked about your upper respiratory system. So now we're going to move on to your lower respiratory system, which is the trachea and the bronchi. All right, are you ready? Although your trachea is your throat. So, I don't know. We'll just keep going. It's good. All right, trachea. The trachea stretches around the larynx. So we're still in the upper respiratory system. Sorry, I'm going with my notes, and sometimes, they're notes. They're not word for word from your book. They're notes. So nose, throat, and larynx are the upper respiratory system. Let's continue with looking at your throat, which is your trachea. Remember, we talked about the pipe that goes down. And that's why you have a tracheotomy. So if something happens really bad and then you can't breathe, then they put a hole right, well, I'm not a doctor, but right in this area, there's like a divot. Yeah. And they put it there, and then they'll put like a tube or something in there so that you can breathe. That's if the rest of your throat is swelling up for some reason, they'll do that. And it's called a tracheotomy because they're going into your trachea. Okay, so the trachea. So stretches around the larynx, okay? Trachea branches off into 2 tubes called the bronchi, sorry. One for the left lung and one for the right lung, which we already talked about. The bronchi also, and your throat actually, also has cilia and mucus to help weed out anything that your nose missed, or if you're breathing through your mouth. Let me move you a little bit, okay? So when you cough, what you're doing is that's all agitated and annoyed, yeah, because of the particles and stuff that it's collecting, and so it expels it by your cough. All right, pretty cool. Again, God designed this system. If he would have designed video, it'd be better than it is. But man designed video, so it is what it is. All right. So lungs. You have two sac-like organs that replace carbon dioxide with oxygen in your blood. Okay? Those are what lungs are. Two sac-like. So remember we talked in class, think of them like balloons, yeah? Empty balloons, and when you blow in, the balloon expands, and when you take your mouth off and let it, the balloon collapses, right? And that is how your lung works. By balloon. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Except, of course, I was doing it opposite, yeah. Okay. So your lungs are very important. Without lungs, you would die. So God created this whole protective system around your lungs. Remember we talked about how your bones are there to protect things? Some bones, like we said, the skull, it protects the brain from any damage because the brain is very important. Without it, your body would totally stop functioning. The same with your lungs. Your lungs are protected by a group of bones that form a cage around your lungs, which we call the rib cage. Oh, we're so creative, aren't we? A cage around your lungs, that's called a rib cage. Very fun. Okay. It's also protected by your breastbone, which is in front of the rib cage. That's like where all the ribs come out of, is the bone. You can actually feel it if you go like that. That's your breastbone. Yeah, and it goes all the way down. Okay. And it's protected by your backbone and your collarbone. Believe it or not, this up here protects your lungs. Pretty cool to think about because you don't have lungs up there. They're kind of down further. Yeah. But that's what the book says, so we're going with it. Pretty cool. So lungs, if they're healthy lungs, like not smoky lungs. Okay, smoky lungs get black. But not smoky lungs, they're pink, a pinkish gray color, okay? And they're about the size of a football. And the left one is a little bit smaller. Do you remember why? To leave space for your heart. Very good. All right, and we already talked about the fact that lungs have no muscles. It's the diaphragm and your chest muscles that make your lungs expand and contract. All right. So, men and women have different sized lungs, okay? So, God created us different because of how He designed us and what He designed us to do. And so, men's lungs have can hold 6.1 liters of air, and women's lungs can hold 4.2 liters of air. I just thought that was so interesting. Because the men, they go out and they hunt, so. And that's actually why men are better runners than women as far as like time and stuff because they can put more oxygen into their body because they have a greater lung capacity. So that's like the big difference. Okay, so bronchial tubes. Guess what? We're almost done, guys, with this section. So bronchial tubes. Are you ready? So lungs, and if you look, there's all kinds of pictures of all of this in your book. So you should be looking in your book, all right? So bronchial tubes. Lungs inside, they are bronchi, branch into, okay, so remember we talked about inside, it branches off into the right lung and the left lung. And then inside the lung, there are also bronchi that branch into smaller bronchial tubes. Okay? And the tubes keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, just like in your circulatory system. You have the arteries and the veins and then the capillaries, right? And they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the capillaries are so small you can't even see them unless you're using a microscope. Remember we talked about that? Same thing with the bronchial tubes. They get smaller and smaller and smaller until you have to have a microscope in order to see them. In fact, like one, remember we talked about that in class too. Like one is like 3 of your hairs. Yeah, makes up like a bronchial tube. Okay. All right. So at the ends of the bronchial tubes, when they get really small, they have tiny little sacs, air sacs at the end of them. Alveoli, I think we said is how you say it, but Nash you'll remember. Okay. They look like little grapes. Okay. And you have 300 million of them in each lung. So you have 600 million little air sacs in your 2 lungs together. That's a ton of air sacs. Okay. And these air sacs are surrounded by tiny blood vessels called capillaries. Remember, we talked about the capillaries. So the capillaries will pick up the oxygen and they will get rid of all the carbon dioxide when they get into the lungs. Remember? So that's where the exchange of the air happens in your lungs, is where the capillaries and the little alveolus come together. Okay, that's where the air exchange goes. Pretty cool. All right, so that is everything that I have for today for your review of chapter 11. So please kind of go back and look at it. You will be looking at it for your chapter, for your quizzes. There's 4 quizzes, A, B, C, D, for chapter 11. So please take the time to actually look up the answers because it will help you on the test, okay? So I'm doing everything I can to help you with this test. You need to do your part too, though, all right? Which means like watching the videos. So, keyword for today is bronchi. Bronchi, sorry. Bronchi. We'll go with bronchi. I was going to say bronchial tubes, but we'll go with bronchi, okay? And the question for today is, how many of the little air sacs do you have in one lung? 300 million. Yeah, one lung, 300 million. So see, if you watch the video, you get all the answers. But anyway. All right, so password, bronchi. Secret question, how many air sacs are in one lung? 300 million. All right. See you later. Bye.